So, today I'm going to read to you just a little bit of H.P Lovecraft, because I'll be honest with you. I'd love to give it a little read, you know. It's late and I found a little time, you know. I wanted to give that to you, my darling, because I know you're special and you deserve it all. And I hope my audio's good, but let me give you a little kiss now. But I don't know exactly what I'll be reading for today, and it won't be too long. I do want to get some sleep. So, let's just find one that we'll hope isn't too controversial. Cool Air by H.P Lovecraft. It's on page 140, so give me just a second to find it, sweetie. And then I'll get right to it. Ah, hey Trey, how are you doing, sweetheart? It is a late stream, and out of curiosity, how is my audio right now? Am I too loud or too quiet? Is the background noise horrible or anything like that? I kinda had to know, of course, for all the good reasons. It's perfect, says Brad. I'm Bezos so is perfect. Good, Trey. I don't know if Darling Chai is streaming right now, but if they are, give them a kiss. So, oh, here. Good boy. Good boy. Such a good boy you are. Now, back to reading. Cool Air by H.P Lovecraft. If you ask me to explain why I'm afraid of a draught of cool air, why I shiver more than others upon entering a cool room and seem nauseated and repelled when the chill of evening creeps through the heat of a mild autumn day. There are those who say I respond to cold as others do to a bad odor, and I am the last to deny the impression. What I will do is to relate the most horrible circumstance I have ever encountered, and leave it to you to judge whether or not this forms a suitable explanation of my particularity. I already feel old when I fumble a word. It is a mistake to fancy what horrors associated inexorably with darkness, silence, and solitude. I found it to be the glare of a mid-afternoon, in the clangor of the metropolis, and in the teeming mist of a shabby and commonplace rooming house, with a prosaic landlady and two stalwart men by my side. In the spring of 1923, I had secured some dreary and unprofitable magazine work in the city of New York, and being unable to pay for any substantial rent, began drifting from one cheap boarding establishment to another in search of a room which might combine the qualities of decent cleanliness, endurable furnishings, and a very reasonable price. It soon developed that I only had a choice between different evils, but after a time I came upon a house in West 14th Street which disgusted me much less than the others I had sampled. The place was a 4-story mansion of brownstone dating apparently from the late 40s, and filled with woodwork and marble, whose stained and sullied splendor argued a descent from the high levels of tasteful opulence. And the room was large and lofty, and decorated with impossible paper and ridiculously ornate stucco cornices. There lingered a depressing mustiness and hint of obscure cookery. But the floors were clean, the linen tolerably regular, and the hot water not too often cold or turned off, so that I came to regard it as at least a bearable place to hibernate, till one might really live again. The landlady, a sternly, almost bearded Spanish woman named Herrero, did not annoy me with gossip or criticisms of the late burning electric light in my third room front hall. And my fellow lodgers were as quiet and uncommunicative as one might desire, being mostly Spaniards, a little above the coarsest and crudest grade. Only the din of street cars and the thoroughfare below proved a serious annoyance. I had been there about 3 weeks when the first odd incident occurred. One evening at about 8, I heard a splattering on the floor and became suddenly aware that I had been smelling the pungent odor of ammonia for some time. Looking about, I saw that the ceiling was wet and dripping, the soaking apparently proceeding from a corner on the side toward the street. Anxiously to stop the matter at its source, I hastened to the basement to tell the landlady, and was assured by her that the trouble would quickly be set right. "Dr. Munoz," she cried as she rushed upstairs ahead of me. "He has, Spielheis chemicals. He is to seek for Dr. himself. Seeker and seeker all the time." Why? H.P. Lovecraft really does like his racial stereotypes. But he will not know other for help. He's very queer in his sickness. Although he seems to take funny-smelling baths, and he cannot excite or warm. All his own housework he do. His little room are full of bottles and machines. He do not work as a doctor, but he was great once. My father in Barcelona has heard of him, and only just now he seems to be an arm of a plumber that got hurt of sudden. He never go out, only on roof of my boy Esteban. He bring him his food and laundry and medicines and chemicals. My God, the sal ammonic that man used for him to keep him cool. Mrs. Herrero disappeared up the staircase to the 4th floor, and I returned to my room. The ammonia ceased to drip, and I cleaned up what had spilled and opened the window for air. I heard the landlady's heavy footsteps above me. Dr. Munoz I never heard, save for certain sounds as of gasoline-driven mechanism, since his step was soft and gentle. I had wondered for a moment what the strange affliction of this man might be, and whether his obstinate refusal of outside air were not the result of a rather baseless eccentricity. There is, I reflected tritely, an infinite deal of pathos in the state of an eminent person who has come down in the world.
"Ah, welcome in, Pink Fluffy. I hope you're having a good time." Currently, I'm just doing a little bit of cozy reading, and if any of you need me to turn up the microphone, by all means, say so. I'm right here, after all, sweetie. And feel free to do some triggers as well. I always aim for your pleasure, sweetheart. Let me find out. Oh. I might have never known Dr. Munoz had it not been for the heart attack that suddenly seized me one 4 afternoon as I sat writing in my room. Physicians had told me of the danger of those spells, and I knew that there was no time to be lost. So remembering what the landlady had said about the invalid's help, of the injured workman. I dragged myself upstairs and knocked feebly at the door above mine. My knock was answered, in good English, by a curious voice some distance to the right, asking my name and business, and these things being stated, there came an opening of the door next to the one I had sought. A cool rush of air greeted me, and though the day was the hottest of late June, I had shriveled as I crossed the threshold into a large apartment whose rich and tasteful decoration surprised me in this nest of squalor and seediness. A folding couch now filled its diurnal roll of sofa, and the mahogany furniture, sumptuous hangings, old paintings, and meadow bouquet shelves, all bespoke a gentleman's study rather than a boarding-house bedroom. I now saw that the hall room above mine, the little room of bottles and medicines which Mrs. Herrero had mentioned, was merely a laboratory of the doctor, and that his main living quarters lay in a spacious adjoining room whose convenient alcoves and large continuous bathroom permitted him to hide all.
Ah, welcome in, sweet Gabs. How are you doing this late night? Are you dealing with any negative weather? Good. Are you okay tonight, sweetheart? I hope you are. And thank you for joining in as always, sweet Gabs. Please relax and listen. Dressers and unobtrusive utilitarian devices, Dr. Munoz most certainly was a man of birth, cultivation, and discrimination. My. Night's been rather rough, or kind of rough. I understand, sweetie. If it's work you're talking about, it's never fun to be too busy or having to do far too many things. In the meantime, if I can have you relax a little bit here, please, sweetheart, relax for me.
The figure before me was short but exquisitely proportioned, and clad in somewhat formal dress of perfect cut and fit. A high-bred face of masterful, though not arrogant, expression was adorned by a short, iron-gray full beard, and an old-fashioned pince-nez shielded the full dark eyes, and surmounted the aquine nose which gave a Moorish touch to a physiognomy otherwise denominately Celtibrian. My mind's word never said before. Thick and well-trimmed hair that argued the punctual calls of a barber was parted gracefully above the high forehead, and the whole picture was one of striking intelligence and superior blood and breeding. Nonetheless, as I saw Dr. Munoz in a cold blast of cool air, I felt a repugnance which nothing in his aspect could justify. Only his lividly inclined complexion and coldness of touch could have afforded a physical basis for this feeling, and even these things would not have been, or should not have been, excusable considering the man's known invalidism. It might, too, have been a singular cold that alienated me, for such chilledness was abnormal on so hot a day, and the abnormal way always excites aversion, distrust, and fear, but repugnance was soon forgotten in admiration. For the strange physician's extreme skill at once became manifest despite the ice-coldness and shakiness of his bloodless-looking hands. He clearly understood my needs at a glance, and ministered to them with a master's deftness, and while reassuring me in a finely modulated, though oddly hollow and timbreless voice, that he was the bitterness of sworn enemies to death, and had sunk his fortune, lost all of his friends in a lifetime of bizarre experimentation. Welcome in, cereal sweetheart. Please, enjoy. And welcome in, sweet Tori. How is both of your days? I hope it's well. And please tell me how you are. And sunk his fortune, lost all of his friends in a lifetime of bizarre experiment devoted to its bafflement and extirpation. Blah, blah, blah. 3 a.m. Sweetie, go to bed. You need it. And he rambled on almost. Something of the benevolent fanatic seemed to reside in him, and he rambled on almost garrulously. As he sounded my chest and mixed a suitable draught of drugs fetched from the small laboratory room, evidently he found the society of well-born men a rare novelty in this dingy environment, and was moved to the unaccustomed speech as memories of better days surged over him. His voice, if queer, was at least soothing, and I could not even perceive that he had breathed as the fluent sentences rolled urbanly out. He sought to distract my mind from my own seizure of speaking of his theories and experiments, and I remember his tactfully consoling me about my weak heart by insisting that will and consciousness are stronger than organic life itself, so that if a bodily frame be but originally healthy and carefully preserved, it may, through a scientific enhancement of these qualities, retain a kind of nervousness and animation despite the most serious impairments, defects, or any absences in the battery of specific organs. He might, he half-jestingly say, some day reach me to live, or at least to possess some kind of conscious existence, without any heart at all. For his part, he was afflicted with the complication of maladies requiring a very exact regimen, which included constant cold. Any marked raise in temperature might, if prolonged, really affect him fatally, and the rigidity of his habitation, some 55 or 56 degrees Fahrenheit, was maintained by absorption system of ammonia cooling, the gasoline engine of whose pumps I had often heard in my own room below.
My. Apologies about the model looking at that tad bit jank. I'm looking down as I read. I should probably see if I can just use a static image or something, instead of just relying on an animated model for simple reading. But never mind that, sweetheart. No, Pink, it's you, Rescue.
Relieved of my own seizure, in a marvelously short while, I left the shiverly place a disciplined devotee of the gifted recluse, after I had paid him frequent calls, listening while he told of secret researches and almost ghastly results.
Oh, my neck.
And trembling a bit when I examined the unconventional and astonishingly ancient volumes on his shelves, I was eventually, I may add, almost cured of my disease for a time by his skillful ministrations. It seems I did not scorn the incantations of the medievalists, since he believed these cryptic formulae to contain rare physiological stimuli, which might conceivably have singular effects on the substance of a nervous system, from which organic pulsations had fled. He was touched by the account of the aged Dr. Torres of Valencia, who had shared his early experiments and nursed him for the great illness of 18 years before, whence his present disorders proceeded. No sooner had the venerable practitioner saved his colleague than he himself succumbed to the grim enemy he had fought. Perhaps the strain had been too great, for Dr. Munoz made it whisperly clear, though not in detail, that the methods of healing had been almost extraordinary, involving great scenes and processes not welcomed by elderly and conservative Galens. My. As the weeks passed, I observed with regret that my new friend was indeed slowly but unmistakably losing ground physically, as Mrs. Herrera had suggested. The livid aspect of his countenance was intensified, his voice became more hollow and indistinct, his muscular motions were less perfectly coordinated, and his mind, well, displayed less resilience, and initiative. Of this sad change he seemed by no means unaware, and little by little his expression and conversation both took on a gruesome irony, which restored in me something of subtle repulsion I had originally felt. He developed strange caprices, acquiring a fondness for exotic spices and Egyptian incense, till his room smelled like the vault of a sepulchred pharaoh in the Valley of Kings. At the same time, his demands for cold air increased, and with my aid he amplified the ammonia piping in his room, and modified the pumps and feed his refrigerating machine till it could keep the temperature as low as 34 or 40, and finally even 28, and the bathroom and laboratory, of course, being less chilled in order that the water might not freeze and that the chemical processes might not be impeded. The tenant adjoining him complained of the icy air from the connecting door, so I helped him fit heavy hangings to alleviate the difficulty, a kind of growing horror. Next page, I suppose. Outer morbid cast seemed to possess him as he talked of death incessantly, but laughed hollowly when such things as burial or funeral arrangements were gently suggested. All in all, he became disconcerting and even gruesome companionate. In my gratitude for his healing, I could not well abandon him to the strangers around him, and was careful to dust the room and attend to his needs each day, muffled in a heavy ulcer, which I brought specially for the purpose. I likewise did much of his shopping and gasped at the bafflement of some of the chemicals he ordered from druggists and laboratory supply houses. An increasing and unexplained phenomena, or atmosphere of panic, seemed to rise around his apartment. The whole house, as I have said, had a musty odor, but in smell in his room was worse. In spite of all the spices and incense and the pungent chemicals of the now incessant baths, which he insisted on taking unaided, I perceived that must be connected with his ailment, and shuddered when I reflected on what his ailment might be. Mrs. Herrero crossed herself when she looked at him and gave him up unreservedly to me, not even letting her son Esteban continue to run errands for him. When I suggested our physicians, the sufferer would fly in too much of a rage, as he seemed to dare to entertain. He evidently feared the physical effect of violent emotion, yet his will and driving force waxed rather than waned, and he refused to be confined to his bed. The lassitude of his earlier ill days gave place to a return of his fiery purpose, so that he seemed to be a hurled defiance at the deaf demon, even as that ancient enemy seized him. The pretense of eating always curiously like formality of him, he virtually abandoned, and mental power alone appeared to keep him from total collapse. He acquired the habit of writing long documents of some sort, which he carefully sealed and filled with injunctions I might transmit him after his death for certain persons who he named. For the most part, lettered East Indians, but included one celebrated French physician who now generally thought dead, and whom inconceivable things had been whispered. As it happened, I burned all these papers undelivered and unopened. His aspect and voice became utterly frightful, and his presence almost unbearable. One September day, an unexpected glimpse of him induced unbearable. One September day. I misread that. I apologize. Utterly frightful and his presence unbearable. One September day, an unexpected glimpse of him induced an epileptic fit in a man who had come to repair his electric desk lamp. A fit for which he prescribed effectively while keeping himself out of sight. The man, oddly enough, had been through the terrors of the Great War without having incurred any fright so thorough. When, in the middle of October, the horror of horrors came with stupefying suddenness. One night, about 11, the pump of the refrigerating machine broke down, so that within 3 hours the process of ammonia cooling became impossible. Dr. Munoz summoned me by thumping on the floor, and I worked desperately to repair the injury while my host cursed in a tone whose lifelessness and rattling hollowness surpassed my description. My amateur efforts, however, proved of no use, and when I brought the mechanic from the neighboring all-night garage, we learned that nothing could be done till morning, when a new piston would not have been obtained. The moribund hermit's rage and fears, swelling to grotesque proportions, seemed likely to shatter what remained of his failing physique, and once a spasm caused him to clasp his hands to his eyes and rush to the bathroom. He groped his way out with face tightly bandaged, and I never saw his eyes again. The frigidity of the apartment was now sensibly diminishing, and about 5 a.m. the doctor retired to the bathroom, commanding me to keep him supplied with all the ice I could obtain from the all-night drug stores and cafeterias, as I would return from the sometimes discouraging trips and lay my spoils before the closed bathroom door. I could hear the restlessness splashing within, and a thick voice croaking out the order for more. At length the warm day broke, and the shops opened one by one. I asked Espon either to help with the ice fetching while I obtained the pump piston, or to order the piston while I continued with the ice, but instructed by his mother, he absolutely refused. Finally, I hired a seedy-looking loafer, who I encountered on the corner of 8th Avenue to keep the patient supplied with ice from the little shop, where I introduced him, supplied myself diligently to the task of finding a pump piston and engaging the workman competent to install it. The task seemed interminable, and I raged almost as violently as a hermit when I saw the hours slipping by breathless, foodless, round, vain telephoning, and a hectic quest from place to place, hither and thither by subway and surface car. About noon I encountered a suitable supply house far downtown, and at approximately 1:30 p.m. arrived at my boarding place with necessary paraphernalia and 2 sturdy, intelligent mechanics. I had done all I could and hoped I was in time. Black terror had, however, preceded me. The house was in utter turmoil, and above the clatter of odd voices as I heard a man praying, deep brasso fiendish things were about the air, and the lodgers told over the beads of their rosaries as I caught the odor from beneath the doctor's closed door. The longer I had encountered. Welcome in, sweet egg. How are you doing, sweetie? The lounger I had hired, it seems, had fled screaming and mad-eyed not long after his second delivery of ice. Perhaps as a result of excessive curiosity, he could not, of course, have locked the door behind him, yet it was now fastened, presumably from the inside. There was no sound within, save a nameless sort of slow, thick dripping. Is my audio still okay, sweeties? I can easily lower the music just a tad. Or not music, but audio. There. I'll lower it just a bit for now. Briefly consulting with Mrs. Herrero, the workman, despite the fear that gnawed at my inmost soul, I advised breaking down of the door. But okay, it's fine. Okay, I just lowered it, so if it's too quiet, please tell me. The landlady found a way to turn the key from the outside with some wire device. We had previously opened the doors of all the rooms on that hall and flung all the windows to the very top. Now noses protected by handkerchiefs were trembling evaded the cursed self-room which blazed from the warm sun of early afternoon. The kind of dark, slimy trail led from the open bathroom door, the hall door, and thence to the desk where a terrible little pool had accumulated. Something was scrawled there in penciled, awful, blind hand on a piece of paper. hideously smeared as through the claws that traced the hurried last words, when the trail led to the couch and ended unutterably. That was or had been on the couch I cannot and dare say here, but this is what I shrivelingly puzzled on the stickily smeared paper before I drew a match and burned it to a crisp. What I puzzled out in terror as the landlady and two mechanics rushed frantically from that hellish place to babble their incoherent stories at the nearest police station. The nauseous words seemed well nigh incredible in that yellow sunlight, with the clatter of cars and motor trucks ascending clamorously from the crowded 14th Street. Yet I confess I believed them then. Whether I believe them now, I honestly do not know. There are things about which it is better not to speculate, and all that I can say is I hate the smell of ammonia, and grow faint at a draw of unusually cold air. The end ran from that nauseous scrawl. Is here no more ice? The man looked and ran away, warmer every minute, and the tissues can't last. I fancy you know what I said about the will and the nerves, and the preserved body after the organs ceased to work. It was a good theory, but I couldn't keep up indefinitely. There was a gradual deterioration I had not foreseen. Dr. Torres knew, but the shock killed him. He couldn't stand what he had to do. He had to get to strange, dark place when he minded the letter and nursed me back, and the organs would never work again. It had to be done my way, artificial preservation. For you see, I died that time 18 years ago. Well, that's it. It's a good story, but one thing I always have to complain about H.P Lovecraft is that his fears are odd. Clearly, he has a fear of air conditioning, one I personally find odd. And if you notice, he pretty much used himself as a self-insert of a poor writer who couldn't get enough money. But thank you, sweeties, for sticking around as I read you a good story. I hope it was incredibly cozy and comfortable, and you enjoyed it greatly. Because ultimately, that's what I like most about reading stories, is making you comfortable. Can't you all agree? That comfort is what we all need. I think it's so. Well, you loved it. I didn't like how I stumbled on a few words, but I think it's alright in the end. I'm gonna go give you some kisses now. Good boy. Good boy. Good girl. Such a good girl you are, sweetheart. You know, I think I know what I'm going to do. So, I think you can do a few redeems, sweetheart. And all you have to do is just click that little button. That little redeem. And we'll make sure that you are perfectly happy and excited for the day. That you're a good, sweet puppy. So kind and darling.
follow, Seven Basan. How are you doing, sweetheart? Oh, you want ear licks? Good choice. Good choice. You want scissors and paper tearing? I think that'll be alright. I'm not sure if I can really do paper tearing. That should be it. I won't do the paper tearing because I don't think I have any paper to tear. So apologies on that, sweetie. But I'll praise you, Egg, for being such a good, sweet, darling girl. With your cute art. And being so sweet to everyone. Occasionally being down bad in a certain person's stream, but that's okay. And it's time to relax, sweetie. And oh, Egg, you can't lie to me. I see what you do. I see how damn bad you can be. Ooh, ooh. Bad girl. Bad, bad girl. Such a bad girl you are. Trying to steal my cookies just like Ace, aren't you? Such a naughty, down bad girl you are. Those cookies are great. I even have a spare one. I bought 2 today. One delicious peanut butter cup tear apart feeling, and they're just so delicious. I'm actually doing good today. I'm probably going to work just a little bit, and I'll actually tell you about my day. I slept something like 12 hours. I had a great nap. The rain was a little bit much, but that's perfectly okay. It's just great all around. And I had a delicious iced coffee. So good and delicious. But I don't think I've ate much today. And yet I'm okay with that. I might go and eat some vegetables or something healthy, you know. But for now, I think I'll just, well, oh, you too. Oh, that's so amazing, isn't it, Elf? I do so love iced coffee. By the way, Elf, since you just chatted, would you like to get yourself a free redeem before I sadly depart? Feel free to just ask. I think it is contingent on both you following and chatting for the first time. Iced coffee is good. The first one I had 2 pumps of cinnamon, and the guy who told me about that originally, so amazing, isn't it? I'd 100% recommend it. And bad eggy. Bad eggy. Such a bad eggy you are. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Where is my spray? 1, 2. Okay. Okay. Era. I'll do one last. And thank you for the follow, Tony. If you want, please do a good redeem. Or just one you like. It doesn't matter. But I'm afraid we don't have terribly much time. Okay. I'll quickly do this. Sadly, I'm going to have to end it here, sweeties. I'm afraid I have to get to work now. Bye-bye, darlings. I love you all. The raid message will just be cozy feet raid. Bye-bye now, sweeties. Love you all.
Hello, Wheatlick.